Hello everybody, my name is Sylvia Walukiewicz. For several years I have been working as a life and personality coach, as a psychologist and as a sensitive and mediumistic consultant. I also give workshops and seminars on various topics of spiritual development. A frequent topic with which many people come to me is that they don't advance in their own healing process, even though they know many different healing techniques and although they have heard about some methods with which apparently everything can be healed. Very often, these methods are presented as if they could heal everything and everyone, which creates even more confusion. In order to outline this topic more profoundly, I would like to share my own experiences through my self-studies and through observations during the work with my clients. First of all, our spiritual, mental and emotional inner worlds are so complex and interconnected with each other that, in my opinion, it is almost impossible to heal it with only one method. Moreover, the topics we want to transform are so different and usually consist of several healing steps, and as a result, different types of methods are needed to find the one that fits. What's more, people are so different and respond in different ways to various methods, so that everyone needs something else. Since one single method cannot include all these aspects, it is advisable to create diverse variations. From my point of view, it is recommendable to perceive the human being as a complex system and to develop more and more holistic healing methods that can work on several layers and that are able to cover various needs. In addition, I find it very essential to adapt the methods individually to each person, instead of recommending the same thing to everyone. Apart from this, it is crucial to realize and to consider on which layer the energetic blockage can be found. On the emotional, mental, physical, already on the behavioral level, or even on multiple layers at once. Another essential point is to combine these methods in an optimal way with each other, so that they match together and can cover the most important aspects. However, at the same time, it shouldn't be too much and too complicated to execute all of them at once. In my view, the decisive factor that can essentially contribute to the healing process is the therapist's, consultant's, or healer's inner attitude, the so-called world outlook, and the energetic state. For example, if the inner attitude is open, benevolent, empathic, and confident, then this can already contribute to the recovery. If the world outlook is based on the conviction that on principle every person is good, but has developed hate, anger, or defiance through emotional pain, it can be much more helpful and healing than building up the perception of judgment. In regards to the energetic state of the therapist or consultant, it is vitally important that they work continuously on their own topics in order to become freer from their old patterns and to free themselves from energies that don't belong to them. In this way, the vibration of the consulter can be positively influenced by the vibration of the healer. What's more, the therapist will be able to perceive the consulter in a more neutral and more objective way, instead of being confused by their own emotions and present topics. Since I've been working on optimizing my work for several years, while of course working on my own issues, I've been able to draw the above conclusions and implement them for myself. I also visited different consultants and healers and was able to look at different work styles, and so I could form my own opinion. On this basis, my working method developed, for which I will give some examples. In the following, I would like to introduce a few examples of what possible combinations of different tools might look like. So you too can start to put together your own toolbox and work on your own topics while getting to know yourself more profoundly. I wish you a lot of joy in putting together your toolbox. Hello everyone! As previously mentioned, in this short video I would like to discuss how to use your energetic toolbox. So when is the right time to use what tool? For this I have chosen some examples which I would like to discuss. The first example is financial problems. So for example, if somebody comes to me and he or she has financial problems, the first step I need to do is to analyze what type of financial problem this person has. Is it rather than the person is spending too much money because she or he hasn't enough control over their behavior? Or is it because a lot of bills are coming in and the person has to pay a lot of things which they didn't expect? Or is it because the person isn't earning enough money, even though he or she is working a lot? Or is it that the person has enough money, but is always worried about not having enough? So this is the first step to really check where the type of blockage, of energetic blockage is. In the second step, it is important for me to analyze, is it rather just mental, so on the mental level, so that the person thinks a lot about money, isn't happy on a mental level, but emotionally maybe the person is calm? Or is it rather than that the person knows it's gonna be fine, but emotionally the person isn't happy or is always worried or even anxious? So this is the second step. If I have understood these emotions, maybe could be fear of not having enough money, or that the person isn't earning enough and doesn't feel enough worthy to have enough money. So this would be about the self-worth. So I really need to do an energetic analysis where the energetic blockage is. And if I have found it out, so for example, let's take the example of the self-worth, which is a very common example. Many people are not having enough money because they think they are not worth it. And these beliefs usually come from the childhood. So I would also it would be also important to find out that it comes from the parents or it comes from society, that you shouldn't talk about too much about money because something could happen, because you could have not so nice friends who just want to use you because you have a lot of money, or that you feel bad having enough money and showing it. Or maybe you really feel like, I'm not worthy of having so much money to fulfill my needs. So in that case, I would use the technique of integrating lost soul pieces. So I would check or analyze the life and find out the situation where the soul piece of being worthy, of having enough money and having one's needs fulfilled, I would find out where this soul piece has been lost. And then I would go back, maybe through hypnosis or through other energetic methods, to really integrate that soul piece. And usually if this soul piece is integrated, then as a second step, I could try with the client to create a new matrix and to really create a new energetic state, mentally and emotionally, that the person is worthy of having enough money in all of the cases. So earning enough, keeping enough, and also spending as much as she or he needs, but still having enough for the basic needs. So this would be one easy example on financial problems. Second example I want to discuss today is jealousy. So if a person is jealous, let's take the girlfriend which is jealous about the boyfriend. So for example, she's always jealous when he's talking with all the girls, she's jealous when he goes out with some friends. In that case, I would analyze how she feels in that moment. Of course, she feels jealous, but usually there are some emotions accompanying this emotion. So is it maybe anger, or is it sadness, or is it fear? In that moment, I would analyze also on the emotional level what's going on. If it's fear, then is it the fear of losing him? Or is she convinced that he will stay with her, but maybe he will give more appreciation to another girl? Is it the fear of not being appreciated enough? Or is it the fear that he could like somebody more than her? Or is she maybe angry? Because it could be that as a child, her brother was more loved from the parents, and she perceived herself as less loved. So maybe there the anger comes from the childhood. So in that case, I should go to the childhood situation and solve that anger there and integrate the soul piece of being a lovable person. And maybe it's also on the mental level that she always sees some, let's say, potential rivals. So in that moment, maybe it's really the mental thing that she is always thinking what could happen, but emotionally, maybe she's quite calm, or it's both. So in that case, I also need to work on the mental level and find out what type of belief it is that she has. And why does she have this belief? And in that moment, maybe it could be that she doesn't trust enough to her boyfriend. So it could be that as a child or in her youth, maybe somebody cheated on her, and in that moment she lost the trust. Yeah, so in that moment she has the impression that she needs to control everything, and if he goes out without her, so in that moment she has no control, and then she experiences the emotion of jealousy. But usually it's because of the pain and of the trust which she has lost in the past. So in that moment, once again, I would need to go back to the past situation and reintegrate the trust, and then teach her how to let go and to deepen the emotion of trust. And in the second step, in my opinion there, it would be also important to create more self-esteem, more self-love, and maybe a better communication about her emotions. Maybe it's also about expressing her emotions to her boyfriend, and like this he could give her more reassurance that she's the only girl he loves and that he doesn't need anyone else. So maybe it's also the fact that she needs to learn how to talk more about her emotions and really appreciate her emotions. It also could be that she always pushes her emotions away and tries to show that she's like always happy, but in reality she has a lot of emotions stuck, which always come up in critical situations when he is not there. So in that moment it's about reintegration of the vulnerability and learning how to deal with it. Or it also can be important to face the fear. And usually fear comes from a past pain which hasn't been transformed. And in that moment, when somebody is afraid of something, it's not the present moment. When somebody is afraid of something, it's always a projection into the future. So the person is anticipating that something will happen in the future that has not happened yet. But the emotional system knows how painful it is, and therefore the person wants to control it and wants to avoid this event, and therefore the fear arises in order to avoid it. But in that moment we feel restricted, we feel limited, and we don't feel good, we don't feel free. So in such a moment I would work with techniques to face the fear, to transform the fear, and of course to transform the pain from the past. And in that moment, when the past pain is transformed and the fear as well, the person is free and we can build up a new self-esteem, new self-worth, and a better life. So this would be one example or several examples of combinations of tools I would use in this case. Of course, depending on where the energy comes from and where the energetic blockage is. Now the third example, a heavy one, but it happens more often than we expect. Usually every fifth girl has experienced something like that or close to that. And I think it's even more. So in my opinion, this is a really important topic. When somebody comes to me with that topic, first of all, we need to understand how the person feels right now, what's the problem right now in this moment, and the first step is to give her or him, it happens also to boys and to men, to give the person some tools to stabilize him or herself during the day. Because usually if a person has experienced such a thing, there are a lot of flashbacks, there's a lot of fear, there is a lot of sadness or anger, and a lot of stress in the body. So the first thing is really to analyze where the person experiences the most stress. Is it rather physical, or is it rather mental or emotional? And then to give some tools in order to be able to deal with that during the day. As a second step, I would check how the situation was, when did it happen, and usually I really like to go directly into the situation. I know it's painful, but like this pain can be resolved much quicker. Just as an example, I had a person and she was abused by her brother. I was the first person to hear about that after 11 years. She was 14 at that time. And we have transformed it in 3 hours. Because we first did the analysis, the stability during the day. In the second step, we went directly into the situation and transformed all of the emotions. She felt, of course, one more time, all of the emotions, but thanks to that, she could integrate all of her lost soul pieces immediately, and she could change and transform the beliefs that have been created based on that negative or critical situation. And in the third hour, we just stabilized it a bit and created a new reality. So this is one of my favorite examples with this lady when talking about sexual abuse. So I would, with a new person, I would do the same. First, stability. Second part, going really into that situation, and then reintegrating the soul pieces. Because, for example, for a woman, the woman could feel insecure. She could feel like hurt in her female energy, in her femininity. Or she could feel like she could have lost the trust that men could be different. And these things are really heavy things. And if the woman or even the man wants to be happy in the future in the relationship, it's almost impossible because these soul pieces are missing. So it's really important to reintegrate these soul pieces, to reintegrate the trust that this was one situation, it was one experience, a heavy experience, but based on that, the person knows much more, let's say, about emotions, about herself, and the person knows how it feels to be down with that. And when the person has transformed it, the person becomes much stronger and has a much greater consciousness. So this is one thing, to really reintegrate the soul pieces and to understand that this was one situation in the past which can be transformed very quickly if the right tools are used, and that the future can be completely different, and that the person can choose how the future should be and not the past situation. So, for example, the woman could reintegrate the feeling of being a beautiful woman, of being secure, of having a self-worth, and maybe to reintegrate more self-esteem and maybe a different behavior. I don't mean too protective behavior with men, but maybe a more stable behavior and with more boundaries. Maybe this woman could learn something about her boundaries, what is fine for her and what not. And maybe this woman could start to appreciate herself more, and she has realized that in the past situation she didn't appreciate herself enough, and therefore, according to the law of resonance, she attracted such a situation. Because according to the law of resonance, we always attract what we have inside, and this is just a manifestation of it in the outer world. So if we transform what we've inside, if we transform the low self-worth, the low self-esteem, the lack of trust, and maybe the low appreciation of ourselves, if we transform that into appreciation, self-worth, luck, happiness, self-love, then we will attract people who mirror us, our inner energetic state. So, these were some combinations and some examples. If you want to know more, you can just text me. If you want to have an example or possible combination for your question or your case or a person you know, just text me. I would love to support you and to give you some ideas. And yeah, the links to some of my tools will be presented later. And for now, I hope you could see how my way of working is, and yeah, maybe you can start to analyze your own situations in a different way. So I thank you a lot for watching this video and see you soon.